Oh, hello! I didn't see you there. We're back talking the second half of Bojack Season 4. Join us right after this.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Woo! There it is.
Commence the fracking.
Commence it. Get in there, Mr. Peanut Butter.
I will.
All right. Hey guys, welcome back to the Bojack After Show. We are rocking during the theme song. My name is Andrew Mena. If you like the sound of my voice, or the way that I make words come out, you should check me out on Twitter at @AndrewMeta or on Instagram at @TheAndrewMeta. Joining me, not as always, as a rare special occasion, to my left, to your probably right, is a gentleman by the name of Phil. Phil, say hello!
I'm Phil Svitek, excited to be here. I guest starred last season and now happy to be back for this season to wrap up all of season 4.
Tight little bow. We're gonna get it all in there.
Absolutely.
Overall, let's just talk about this before we jump into kind of our little sections of analysis. As a show, we were just kind of saying that we are big fans. This is a great show.
Absolutely. I think they're really hitting their stride. I really enjoyed what they did this season. As much as they've recycled various things that we've seen in the past, they've also managed to take it further. And overall, what I said to you was we've had shows like Entourage and other Hollywood-type shows that sort of glamorize what it is like to be in Hollywood.
In the industry, as it were.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Now this sort of it obviously shows a much kind side to the creative process.
Much more like human. Yeah, totally. I totally agree. Let me ask you this, because it can be kind of hard to pinpoint one thing about Bojack that you like, because we were saying before we started recording also that Bojack is a kind of like a two-sided coin, in that it has this very serious side, this side that like reveals human truths and animal truths. Am I right? But also it has this very, comedic kind of like almost throw away the joke sort of attitude as well.
Well, I think, I forget if we talked about it last time I was on. I think we did, but it has kind of the level of absurdity that comes in there. You can't help but just like burst out laughing, but it's like, oh.
Yeah, and they stop you, exactly, immediately. Cool, awesome. So let's talk about what a great show this is first and foremost, because I think that's kind of mainly my commentary on this season. I feel like this was, like you said, like not even just a return to form, but like an opportunity for them to push more. And I thought that this season dealt with some really heavy issues. We get kind of in the beginning the kind of hints of who Crackerjack is, and the whole situation with the mother and all of that. And we're hinted a lot of stuff that we're given in the second half of things, because we definitely know that she was lobotomized, the mother character, or the great-grandmother, if we want to call her that. I don't know that we ever learn her name.
No.
We probably do, and I just don't recall.
I mean,
but she's played by Jenna Maloney. Isn't that her name? Or maybe I'm thinking of her character name from 30 Rock, but Jenna from 30 Rock. If you guys remember, Jenna, 30 Rock, right? Delightful. That whole family, wonderfully cast. Matthew Broderick plays the dad. He's weirdly terrifying as like a old-timey father. Lin-Manuel Miranda as the
Honey.
very brief Honey. Thank
Honey.
you. Exact. Of course, their name's Honey. Love it.
That's partly why it's,
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, what would the horse's name can't be Honey? Come on. No, it is. Yeah. So we're brought into that whole world, and all of the flashbacks I feel like exist in this like very, very dark place. Like, I don't know if it's just because I've seen it recently, but there's like this like weird connotation of the history to me when I'm watching Bojack's version of this history that feels really dark. That feels really like mean and evil. Like, you know what I mean?
I mean, I don't think you can't help but think of the ramifications, right? A lot of times it can go it can be sort of shoehorned in as just exposition, and I felt Bojack didn't really do that. They used it strategically and almost in a mystery sense, and what it did ultimately for me was overall highlight the effects of just a family and the repercussions of everyone's actions. And granted, it's one of those things, like, part of it was they were trying to be better people, and yet they were aware of how bad human beings they were.
Yeah.
And yet everyone strove to be better, and unfortunately no one ever was.
Yeah. No, you're right. And I mean, it's just, we get a lot of moments in there too. We get moments where they're very overt about like, oh, honey, we have to throw away your doll because it has diseases on it, and that we have to get rid of it. Like that's great, and it's also very like telling of all of the trauma we've seen up to that point. But then we also have these moments like the dance sequence or not even dance, but song sequence where she's singing the song, and she just bursts into tears and she like needs a drink and she like kisses the one guy who went off to war with Cracker Jack and like all of that. It's all just very like, whoa. How do we interpret this? Is this just like hysteria as we're to believe it, or is this just like this is just her? This is how the grief person is manifested, or
I think
I mean, obviously it's that, but it's
I mean,
so
I think part of the commentary is the fact that that overall through generations we all suffer the same thing, and
even though we may not know why, yeah.
Absolutely, and one of the things you said, this is a show about identity, and I think each one of these characters is trying to find their identity, even down to a character like Todd who's identifying with being asexual.
Yeah,
we all need a quote label, even though in his instance he doesn't want to be labeled.
I thought that was a really interesting episode too because we basically like it seems easy to us as the audience to be like, yeah, you're asexual, cool, no big deal. But then he has this whole episode where he's just like, I can't deal with being called this thing. It makes it real. It makes it actual. It means that there are like responsibilities or whatever. It means that people can like, they understand a thing about me that I'm not sure I understand about myself yet, which is like, that's a hard thing to commit to, right? Like, I don't know. It's weird. And I think it's cool because it's like this, it's definitely a story that I haven't heard or seen in other TV series. So I'm happy to see it. I'm so interested in like where they're gonna go with it, what's gonna come of it, and like how true to this experience is Todd going to be and end up, because he didn't start out here. This is like this season thing almost.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know what. First off, I don't know how many seasons they'll ultimately do.
We know they're having a 5.
They are having a 5.
This is confirmed. I saw it on the Twitter.
That's right.
It's definitely happening.
I hope they have a lot more, especially if they continue like this. I mean, ultimately, I want them to tell their story. So if 5 is all it takes, that's up to them.
Fantastic.
But I really think, yeah, it's, and I don't know how they're going to do it. I think it's going to be one of those ironic endings where it's not going to give you a definitive answer, because ultimately, when you talk about identity, it's not like no one can tell you what your identity is, what my identity is, but at least they can give you the steps
to help identify.
Yeah, exactly.
I totally agree with that. Yeah, there's no right answer. It's all very personal, and because of that, I just like this journey is not something anyone can repeat.
Yeah.
Totally. Let's talk some more about the serious shit, because we're real into that serious shit. I love it. We get a little bit into kind of politics in the second season as well. The first episode of the second, we're calling it the second half of the 4th season, but Underground. Excuse me.
Yes, episode 7.
All right, I'm alive. Yeah, so it's this wonderful episode where, because of all the fracking, Mr. Peanut Butter's house is pulled underground, and they have a whole bottle episode, more or less, if we want to use TV terms, right? Where they're stuck in the house, and Woodchuck comes down to save them, and is injured and cannot escape either. So they're all stuck down in this like almost like Lord of the Flies sort of situation where new society must occur, kind of thing. What do you think of that?
I really enjoyed it because, it created obviously a microcosm of what would be if they were actual leaders, and where already the political process in the series was just helter-skelter. I mean, they were going to announce a gubernatorial race just by the race downhill. Yeah. So this just seemed on par with anything else. It's not like, oh, wow, this is completely out of left field.
No, this was pretty par for the course. But I do really agree. I think it was a really fun use of the episode. It's like a really fun idea to give them this microcosm where they're allowed to kind of play out what happens. And I appreciate very much that Mr. Peanut Butter can watch himself fail at leading and be like, hey, maybe I shouldn't do this. Like, I think there are so many other characters, especially like a Bojack character. If this was like reversed and Bojack were the one running for gubernatorial position, he would have been like, man, I'm not good at this. I got to win so I can get better. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and we're giving Mr. Peanut Butter, who's like, yeah, that's cool. All right, I'm done. That stopped being fun. Yeah. Which is also a delightful thing. Like, Mr. Peanut Butter offers us, like, Bojack envies Mr. Peanut Butter so much for his just optimism, for his ability to like when he's searching for the toy and in front of what's her name's house,
Felicity Huffman.
Yeah, Felicity Huffman's house, and he just is like, oh, look at this idiot, so happy, so pure, and he's just like watching Mr. Peanut Butter smell around, right? Like, there's something beautiful and interesting and fundamental about the way that Bojack just envies everyone, thinks that everyone else can do it, it thinks that everyone else has it down.
Well, I think there is that, but to sort of go tangential to that,
Please.
I think it's this idea that no one speaks the truth except for Mr. Peanut Butter, because he has no deeper thoughts. He can only speak on surface level, whereas everyone else is lying to each other.
Is trying to present themselves the nicest truth that they can. Absolutely, I totally agree.
And part of that is, it's that age-old quote, like the liar lies to others, the artist to himself. Well, they're all artists, but I think in a that quote sort of sort of glamorizes it. Whereas I think the reality of it is they're all very dark people, and they want to lie so that way they can feel better about themselves because they know the reality.
Exactly. No, I think that's very true. And yeah, no, absolutely. And it also just shows you like, oh, Mr. Peanut Butter, you're so pure. You're such a little you're a Labrador Retriever. I love it. Let's talk about, so we're brought Holly. Holly, who we think for the most of this second half of the season is still the daughter. And who were, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched this season, you pause this right here, you go watch it, and you return to this point in the video, and then you watch it from here. So it turns out that she's the sister, and that this is actually another child of the father with the caretaker, Henrietta, which is why we're watching Bojack be called Henrietta by the mother throughout. Which that doesn't entirely, clear that up, but it at least gives us like, oh, okay, that's who that is. I think it's an incredible choice to make her the sister rather than a daughter, because for a million reasons. I honestly feel like it gives us a more real sense of family and self and like togetherness that he could be pulling from this. And because of the way that they interacted, and like, it's definitely not the greatest situation. Like, he definitely could have handled a lot of things better, sure, but they left in a spot where I think that they can have like a real family relationship for the first time, because all he understands is this ridiculous dysfunction. And I think if he's able to kind of like loan himself out to the idea of having a younger sister and like being a supportive older brother, like he was ready for the idea of dad for a minute.
Well, I think it works on two levels. It alleviates him of a deeper responsibility, and it also brings them together because they both have the same parent, and so they can kind of empathize with each other in that regard. And obviously, it's a very, to me, it's a very Chinatown reference.
Sure. Yeah, I see that. I definitely see that. I think there was a moment too where I expected that not us to never get a reveal, and for us to be like contented with the idea that like, hey, yeah, he has a daughter and she hates him now, and that's just the way that Bojack's life goes. I was ready for that, and I think that the reveal was really exciting, and especially the scene with the dads where he's just like, no, you guys are willfully misunderstanding me. She is not my daughter. No, we know we're her dads. That whole scene, delightful. Because then, obviously they hit the nail over the head a little bit too hard on that scene, but like that is also a big part of it. Like, your family is also like, yes, absolutely, family is blood, and there's something to be said for like, oh yeah, genetics and stuff. Like, we'll repeat the errors of our ancestors, etc. But family's also chosen, and family's also like, Bojack wouldn't be the person he is if he didn't know Todd. He wouldn't be the person he is if he didn't know Princess Carolyne. You know what I mean? Like Mr. Peanut Butter. All of these people, like, they wear on his soul, and now his little soul. I feel like maybe we're gonna get more of this in season 5, because I feel like it's become more overt as we go on in the seasons. But everyone in Bojack's little like extended family cares about him so much in this like fundamental, incredible like way, even though he kind of doesn't deserve it almost ever.
Well, I appreciate what he did say to Carolyne, of the fact of
right before he asked her for a favor. On the phone, is this the scene? Because I loved that scene where he was like, it was such a beautiful sentiment, and he's like, because I need to know where my mom is being kept. Bye, and like that whole when he's calling her on the phone.
No, luckily it's not that one. Although that was funny in itself. No, it
killed me.
It was the part where he said, you know what, I'll do your show. I don't care. And, you've dealt enough with me.
Yes.
So I appreciate that moment.
Yes, I totally agree. I honestly thought that was going to be much more of a to-do. I thought we were going to get more resistance out of Bojack, and I kind of feel excited that we're going to have like a season where he's like, no, let's just do a thing. Let's do a thing. I'm feeling modest and down to earth now all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Great. Cool. I'm interested. Let's do that. Yeah. So this season as a whole, we get a lot about family, a lot about the repetition of mistakes. Episode 11 is called Time Zero. We have that phrase repeated a couple times, which is a phrase from the Matthew Broderick great-grandfather character. Time Zero marches ever onward, never back, or something like that. It's very specific. It's like, yeah, Time Zero marches, and then they have that whole bit they do making fun of it and stuff. Just very revelatory. I feel like this is all. It's all about family and all about how it all interconnects and stuff. I feel like that Time Zero thing is really just, we all have things that, and you guys don't have to do this. You don't have to examine the way that you talk, but if you want to, I feel like there's a way that we talk. There's a thing that we say, everyone, that it's just like, you only say that because your like parent or brother or family member says it, and you probably understand what it means, but you maybe don't like. You really just like it. Just is a reflex at this point.
Well, I do agree. And actually, something that I learned, with that episode in particular, an interesting moment for me was when they're talking about getting married and she's disobeying her father, right? And like, hey, just get a job. And he has, I forget the exact quote, so I'll paraphrase, of like, okay, fine, but if my work suffers because I have like this high-end job or whatever, like, and I'm not connected to like the
people, or whatever.
Then it's going to be your fault or something along those lines. And I thought that was very telling because that's when, like, even though they become obviously much, much more affluent, everything started going downhill. And there's a psychological term called the false self, where it usually happens in kids where, if you're a kid, let's say 3 or 4 years old, and they take away your lollipop, and you're like, what? But I like the lollipop. You might be too young to comprehend as to why a lollipop or eating lollipops all day nonstop is probably not a good thing.
Sure. So,
you kind of like know how to put on this face, but deep down your true self is like, no, I want the freaking lollipop.
Yeah.
So in this sense, it kind of became an adult representation of like, okay, that's not my true self. And I think the show overall, like, let's just put on this facade. Because that's what I have to be, but it's not really who I am.
No, I think you're right, and I think that's kind of that's one of the overarching themes of this show is the ability to and the necessity to put on a facade. Like you said, they're all entertainers, and like even Mr. Peanut Butter, who we wonderfully get in the first. We talked a little bit about this last time, but I'd love, because you weren't here, so let's talk about it a little bit. How Mr. Peanut Butter gets this job just by wandering in. It's like, I saw this light on, so I stopped what I was doing and I wandered onto set. Like, Mr. Peanut Butter is a force for chaotic goodness. I love it. It's just madness.
He can be.
Yeah.
He can be. But like proven with the fracking, I mean, it's both sides of the coin, Sometimes you can be blissfully ignorant and leads to good stuff, or you can be blissfully ignorant and unfortunately it's
and it's not as blissful. Yeah, absolutely. That's just about everything I want to talk about. I want to talk briefly about some of the ships in this show, because I think the ships, that's the TV watcher's term for it. But some of the relationships, right? Because I feel like this is obviously a show about relationships. We have some really interesting developments in some of our existing relationships this season. We have Princess Carolyne and Ralph split up, which is weird, which is very sudden. It was like she's dealing with miscarriages this season, and it's very intense. But she's dealt with them before, and she's gonna get through them and be stronger. But she needs someone who can also deal. So Ralph wasn't ready. Maybe she could have dealt with it better. Maybe she could have told him while not drunk. But hey, that's what happened, and now they're no longer together. I'm sad about that. I want Princess Carolyne to have happiness, and I feel like it's all very much tied to her idea of the family as well. So. God, that was so upsetting too. The whole sequence where Ralph takes her to the family dinner, and they're just like, "Yeah, cats are evil." Like I was trying to imagine like the real world like equivalent of it. Would it be like bringing a Jewish woman to like a Nazi like reenactor's house or something like? It was horrible.
I mean, you could call it the Get Out effect of like
exactly.
A white woman bringing a black guy to her house. Like there's multiple versions of this.
I see that. Yeah, it was pretty jarring, and like it was like a religious thing where their religion specifically hates cats, which was like, makes sense for mice, but also does not make sense in a world where they like live together. And like,
there is that great comic like Mouse where, you know, I mean, it's basically Nazi Germany and the cats and the mice, you know,
sure,
the Jews and the Nazis.
Yeah,
it's a 2-part comic, I believe, and really good.
Gotta check it out. You guys check out Mouse. It'll illuminate a lot of this season for you.
But as far as that was concerned, I appreciated like you know, the fact that she was honest with Bojack, and he says she says, you know, ex-boyfriend, and he's like, oh, what an asshole, and she's like, no, he's actually really nice.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's a wonderful understanding in there. He thinks he needs to take that position, be like, what an asshole, to be the good friend. And she's like, you know what? Nah, it's cool. And he's like, all right, cool. Yeah, there's a lot of understanding coming into this show that I'm really excited about. Like, understanding is like the friend of like storytelling. I don't know. I love it. I'm so excited. Some more ships really quick. I think that there's so much being hinted to with Diane and Peanut Butter, but also with Diane and Bojack. It feels like Diane was the main, because he was so afraid to see her when he came back to town, and because he was like, I can't see her when I'm drunk, like that whole bit. It feels like there is something that needs to be said to Diane. I mean, they definitely connect better than almost anyone else in the show. It feels like they are on the same wavelength, which is frustrating because we also get like, oh, there's like a really great Mr. Peanut Butter and Diane stuff where they're like driving halfway to Hawaii, which probably takes like a week or something horrible.
Absolutely. Well, in that traffic, certainly.
In that traffic, am I right? Yeah. So I was thinking that too. Like when they finally, I turned to my friend that I was watching with, and I was like, they're gonna have to go to the bathroom soon. This is a long drive. Oh, there's some place they're stopping. Great, good. It's like they better have gas stations halfway to Hawaii, because this is not a good plan. Beyond the kind of never-ending question of Diane and Bojack looming over our heads, do you have any other ships that you're immediately part of?
Obviously, well, you know, at some level we should talk about Todd and Courtney Portnoy.
We should,
because that was a relationship that was completely falsified.
They nearly got married, but Todd was like, nope.
Yeah, and obviously that affected Diane in terms of her relationship, but it was good to see that, because it was just satirical of Hollywood relationships.
Yeah.
But furthermore, you know, when we talked about his asexual struggle, you know, what does that really mean? And the fact that he was able to find someone, you know, we'll see where it goes, but at least like, hey, you know, I'm asexual too, and
yeah,
you know, everyone's kind of finding their own happiness by just being honest.
Yes,
slowly but surely.
And that's the message of the show. Just be honest, and good things will come. That's a wonderful message to leave out on, I feel. Do you have any other thoughts, any other things about Bojack Horseman, the wonderful show that you'd like to touch on?
I do want to go a little bit deeper with Diane and whatnot, because
okay, please.
Well, because when you talk about Bojack and Diane and their wavelength, they are a little bit sort of doom and gloom at times.
Certainly, they have a natural tendency towards sarcasm, and a natural tendency towards like incredulity. They don't believe things. They aren't willing to believe things. They're like, okay, that seems too good to be true. They're of this mind where if things are out to get them, people are out to get them. People aren't their best selves, which, especially in the episode "You're a Piece of Shit" that we get, where we hear Bojack's inner monologue, we don't get her inner monologue, Diane's inner monologue, but maybe we will. Maybe we'll be shown that she thinks the same. That she's like, Diane, you piece of shit. Like, stop eating. Like, you know what I mean? Stop eating the cookie or whatever. But until then, like, I feel like there's definitely that sense of like, you know, his like intense self-loathing driving his whole humanity, and maybe that's like there's a kernel of that same self-loathing within Diane.
Well, that's the problem, you know. There is that part where like she judges the rest of the world, but it's disguised truly as judgment for herself. You know,
totally,
and that hurts her in the deepest of ways.
And it's hard too, because she is a very intellectual person, not married to a very intellectual person. So she has a lot of like with the fracking episodes, like ideological issues.
Yeah, friction
with fissures. It was funnier in my head. All right. Yes, I totally agree. Diane is going to be one of our main players, I feel like, in the next season, and especially the because I feel like there's something going on in the marriage, and I think the marriage between Peanut Butter and Diane is like on the rocks. I don't know if that's an entirely astute observation, but I do feel like it's strained.
I would definitely say.
Yeah. Okay.
The saving grace can't be just having hot, passionate sex.
Having hot, super hot sex. Yeah.
After being
After
angry.
fighting. Yeah. It can't be enough.
So.
I know you have another thing you want to touch upon real quick.
Yeah.
I'd love to pass it over to you.
So fans of AfterBuzz and
Listen up.
Bojack and everything, we're doing things a little bit differently. Hopefully to benefit all of you guys. We've splintered off our YouTube channels in particular, so that way it's divided by genre. You can subscribe to specific genres. That way, you can get the notifications. I know sometimes when it was just one channel and you have over 100 shows a week, it can be intimidating because you're like, I don't want to get all these notifications. I want to only get what I want to get. So now there's animation, there's drama, there's reality competition, superhero and sci-fi stuff, a couple of other ones that I'm missing out on. But nonetheless, Bojack falls into the animation category. So if you like Bojack, if you like other animated series, whether South Park or so forth, feel free to hit that subscribe button on this channel, and you'll get all the animation shows.
There it is.
Simple enough.
But with the click of a mouse, dear boy, dear ladies, dear everybody. Awesome. Phil, thank you so much for joining me today, for talking some Bojack. It's a wonderful season. We implore you, if you haven't already watched it, to watch it. I don't know why you would watch this if you haven't watched it, but the internet's a crazy place. Phil, where can people find you on the internet if they'd like to keep up with you?
Absolutely. philsvitek.com. That's my website. Furthermore, I'd love to, because this season is so jam-packed, I'm happy to correspond with you guys, whether on Twitter or in the comments section below, so don't hesitate. It's been a lot of fun for me on other shows that I've been a part of to really converse, and this one is no different.
Agreed entirely. You can find me on Twitter at Andrew Mena and on Instagram at the Andrew Mena. Like Phil, if you have things to say about Bojack, hit me up. DM me. Hit me up with just regular M's. You know, all the M's. Any M's that you have, send my direction. And thank you guys so much for watching. We'll catch you next time. Bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
I love